Welcome to All Kinds. I'm Kaya.
And I'm Yehudis.
Today, we're going to be discussing all the daytime, nighttime controversies. Ellen, what's going on? Same with Jimmy. As well, we're going to be discussing the always popular Karens. They've gone wild. Let's get started and figure out what is going on.
Absolutely. So getting into this, Ellen DeGeneres, as you know, she has a very popular TV show. And her motto at the end of the show every time is to always say, and as always, be kind to one another. That's what Ellen's public persona, that's what she wants you to believe, that she's kind. But Chaya, you have information that leads to otherwise.
So we all know Ellen, and it's almost like you just have to love Ellen. And we do. She's been around a very long time. Even before she made that historic, yep, I'm gay thing on time.
And that was historic.
She had her own show. I remember with Jeremy Piven. And it was always really cute because back then, even though she wasn't out, there was like a uniform, like she was clearly out on the show, but she played a heterosexual woman out and about dating and the trials and tribulations. Well, what she became controversial at the time was the yep, I'm gay. But as you know how that all worked out, she got her show. Then recently, Ellen's been in the news a few times. There was the time she was cited seeing with George Bush. And then this very famous YouTuber, I don't know her. I don't know if you ever watched this girl, Nikki DeJagger. I don't know if I'm not saying this
She's
right.
the makeup artist.
Oh, okay. So she actually said Ellen was very cold and mean to her, but she's transgender. That was the whole thing.
Right. Well, I think Ellen, before we get into a list of her deeds, I think Ellen is groundbreaking. I mean, she's a lesbian.
Absolutely.
She has a talk show host. And when I see Ellen, I don't think of lesbian right away when I watch her show. And that's what I think is great. She doesn't she'll confront it when it needs to be confronted. Like once when she was on a spokesperson for JCPenney, this company called A Million Moms, this organization were against it because she was gay. So then she comes on her show and she makes a very funny skit because they accused her of having a gay agenda. So she made a very funny skit about it. So before all that,
say, hold on, there was before Ellen's daytime show. Ellen existed before then, was in movies and all that. Rosie had a show.
That is true. So, and Rosie, you know what? I completely forgot. I think Rosie is the best talk show host. I grew up watching Rosie.
She was openly gay. I don't think
openly gay.
Yeah,
she wasn't hiding it. So you know what? You're right.
Kids.
But Ellen was still funny in that regard. However, recently it came out on a Twitter thread that Ellen, tell me your meanest Ellen story.
That's how it started.
There has been lots, and she sounds like a bitch and a Karen. But again, we don't know.
The hair is too short.
But what
it's got to be a blunt cut.
What we do know is that Ellen recently cut her unionized staff and hired ones that were out of contract.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought
that was a big scandal.
Pandemic happened, the workers were saying, we don't know if we're getting paid. Is this after? Or
this is during the times of Corona that it came out. And again, all these celebrities who talk about, especially the ones who were pro Bernie or pro this, pro that. When it comes to your step where, you could afford to pay, even though it'll cost you, you see that they don't do it.
They're not very progressive when do as I say, but not as I
progress,
do.
For you guys, but just not for me.
Right. So she's hiring non-union people. And then these workers are saying that was also part of the scandal, that they were saying they don't know if they're going to be paid. This was in April. They're like, they haven't heard anything. She's off in her mansion, and apparently she's making these jokes like it's like being in jail. And they're like,
so she did say that.
Eat?
And when she said that, I mean, keep in mind, Ellen has a lot of properties, and they're beautiful properties. And again, she deserves them. She works hard, not saying that. But when you say, especially with the guests that she has on her show, she meets some incredible guests. She met once a Marine that was burned like 70% of his body. Oof. And so she knows she's seen real hard times. So when she's saying, it's like a prison. I mean, we all know you and Portia are not living in a prison.
Yeah, and especially she didn't always live in her mansion. Like she acts like she's like born and raised in this thing. Well, she should know.
To her benefit,
too,
she had a comedy stand-up special called Relatable because she was admitted that she's maybe not as relatable anymore. That's
true.
So she doesn't hide from that. So that I kind of like. But what gets me is this be kind.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you say that because when did the Ellen show came out in 2003? But they said, and I don't know, that whole post of who's had stories where Ellen's not as nice. You have to understand what she's selling on the daytime show. Forget the Ellen from everywhere else is I'm nice to everybody. nice, be kind.
Be kind.
But apparently even she's a bit of a diva, which I think is what you're saying, acknowledging. Even in 2011, she apparently, producer says that Ellen once called Steve Jobs to demand larger font sizes because she lost her glasses and couldn't read a text.
But, I actually
love
don't.
that kind of diva behavior. I'm not going to lie. I love a good diva.
I'm not going to lie. If I'm of Ellen status, I'm totally forgetting where I come from. I love my brothers and sisters. Some of them I'll just completely forget. And, that's just the rule of it. I'll completely forget where I come from for the most part. I mean, I will be having private jets. I will be, having a chef in-house.
Ooh, private jets. You can get in a lot of trouble today in a private jet.
And again, I will be demanding, Jeff Bezos to make the shows on Prime that I want to see.
That's exactly what that is.
So I actually like her for that.
No, I love good diva behavior. You always hear about it with the legendary ones.
If I could just say my comments on this, because she was hanging out with Bush.
That was the big controversy.
This is my issue with it, because Ellen had Caitlyn Jenner on. And this was a really good interview because it showed Caitlyn's her hypocrisy. Ellen asked Caitlyn, what did you think of same-sex marriage? And Caitlyn said, well, I've always been kind of a traditionalist. So, I wasn't really feeling it, but now I am. And I remember Ellen was taken back. And it's true. Caitlyn does seem genuinely still judging people who are in same-sex relationships.
She's still mentally like a right-wing type of person.
But the thing that gets me is then she's hanging out with, Caitlyn is not a president. She hung out with George Bush, who was not even for gay rights.
Well, the problem is, that's what people are saying. And Ellen says, her defense was, I got to be kind to everyone. I have friends that maybe we don't agree.
But she wasn't so kind to Caitlyn, and she was really kind to George Bush, a person who
had the power and used it.
That's right.
Against the LGBTQ community.
And then she's defending it. So again, I think she was completely right with Caitlyn, but you just need to use that same energy with George Bush, one would think.
Because he's in the position to affect the lives of that entire community. And he did detrimentally do that.
And I just wouldn't be able to even...
So that was the main
if I was Ellen, to even say hi to him, because this is, again, a president who had the authority and did not support same-sex relationships.
Actively was against it. Didn't he?
So that's my hypocrisy. That's my...
Marriage is a man and a woman, that's it. He was fighting against LGBTQ. And I know for her to say, well, no, we should all be nice. Well, that's fine. But your friendship is not helping, because this person is not just some guy who hates LGBT. He's using a power to
he used the power. He's no longer a president.
At the time.
I just find that so ironic that, you can be kind of, asking Caitlyn all these hardcore questions, but then you're friends with Bush. It just doesn't add up.
I didn't know she interviewed Caitlyn.
Oh, it's a great interview. You got to watch it.
Was that after Caitlyn's big documentary? Because I would be curious, because it's true. Caitlyn says she was a traditionalist and she was probably anti-gay marriage and all that.
She was. She admitted it on the show. And it is, again, to Ellen's credit, I do agree with her. Transgender, what do you mean you were like a traditionalist? You thought for years. And that's what I mean.
For trans and everybody else.
You know what I mean, though? But anyone, all those people who are so anti-abortion, so anti-gay, sometimes you have to think maybe there's something going on in their personal life.
Oh, 100%.
Just like Caitlyn.
Why? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the issue is. Why does it bother you what someone else is doing if they're hurting nobody?
It's like,
why is it your
Pastor
business?
Ted Haggard, he was one of the biggest preachers in America. He said constantly how bad being gay was. And then he was caught with a gay prostitute doing crystal meth. So always be careful those guys who talk about issues that you really can't control. You can't control being gay. Just like if you need an abortion, sorry, you're going to get one.
Well, this is the thing. It's like, shout out to Lady G. She knows what we're saying. But I'll just say this. That's where the controversy is coming from. And Ellen doesn't understand. She thinks, oh, maybe it's because I'm rich and I'm not relatable. The George Bush thing, I'm just friends. If she's people grow and change. And that's where she is now. That's fine. But then she can't say, oh, yeah, just be kind or whatever. Because it's not kind when these policies hurt real people. So she needs to be aware of that. Well, she has a huge platform.
Yeah. And again, it's weird that she wouldn't be friends with Caitlyn. She'd be like, ugh. But then with Bush, she's like,
Yeah, maybe he is a great guy on a personal note. I don't know. I don't know him. But clearly what his actions was not friendly to her community.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. So that's the Ellen thing. I'm sure we'll be hearing more about it. Mostly it was all her jokes in the mansion, though, that really set people off and looking really deeper into her. So these celebrities need to watch out. Like while they're, people are suffering out there and they're enjoying their mansions, that's great. But do what they can to support and stop getting crazy.
I agree. I saw Jennifer Lopez. They were walking out Black Lives Matter. And then like people on Twitter were like, just fucking donate. Like, we're not asking you to be on the street. Kind of like what Dave Chappelle said. Like, I don't need to be on the streets, but I'm going to, Dave Chappelle is supporting it one way or another.
Well, Ellen does support these causes.
And especially J-Lo, who's, it's been proven that, Ashanti was on many of her vocals in her songs. So just be quiet, J-Lo, and donate.
Well, I guess we'll move on from here. But, we do have to talk about our sponsors. So I'm just going to tell you that this week's episode has been brought to you by Wigs. Get your very own Karen wig for those special occasions for when you absolutely insist on talking to the manager. Wigs come in a variety of sizes, so you can be ready, whether it's to address the manager, the regional manager,
definitely, or
our deluxe blunt cut beehive for that next level when you definitely need to speak with the owner of this establishment. Am I right? Yes.
And we're back.
So speaking of Karens, girl, it has been an explosion.
So for those of you guys who don't know what Karens are, if you're living under a rock, it's basically a white woman, or it's now been other Karens.
It's an attitude now.
It's an attitude now. It's basically a baby boomer age, a middle-aged woman who cannot say no, who cannot handle being told that no, they can't get their way. And there's been some that have been, unfortunately, more racist than others.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you guys have seen the recent scandals. We all know about Central Park Karen, Amy
where she
Cooper.
Weaponized saying, this woman said, I'm going to tell the police that an African-American man is fighting with me. And she knew exactly what that meant.
Yeah, so you guys...
So not that one.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with the story, this guy was just bird watching, and you're supposed to have a leash on your dog, especially around an area where all these birds are. It just makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, ma'am, can you put your dog on a leash? And that's when she just flipped out and used her crazy privilege and went bananas.
And the fact that that you could say that still in New York in 2020 shows that there obviously is a white privilege that if you call the police, they would believe that, oh my God, a black man in a park.
What was shocking to me is, well, not shocking, but this bitch is Canadian.
Well, you can take her, America. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Enjoy.
But all these patties, we have permit patties, we have BBQ Becky.
Yeah, she started it.
I mean, it's those people who, work even at fast food, they have to deal with them. I want to speak to your manager. I want to speak to your supervisor.
Now, I just want to say for everybody out there, I know it's getting a really bad rap because everyone associates Karen with speaking to the manager, but sometimes you do need to speak to the manager.
That is true.
Okay. Are we never going to be able to speak to a manager again?
Sometimes you really do need a manager. I mean, once I was shopping at Lush, like I always do, and I buy soap by the pound. He gave me a large bucket, but it wasn't a pound. So I needed to speak to him because it was usually it's fills to the top of the bucket.
Are they weighing this?
Yeah, they're.
Okay.
But he didn't weigh it. I didn't see him do anything. So I was like, excuse me, sorry.
Good for you.
But that was the one time, guys.
Wait,
okay,
so
I'm not a Karen.
Refused and you asked for the manager?
Yeah, at one point he's like, no. I countered him. I'm like, can you just get? And then the manager was behind him, so it's not like I asked for the manager, but I was like, can you just? And it turned out that I was right.
So I want to be very clear. Pudding has long, beautiful, thick hair. She does not have a blunt, short.
No, I don't, guys. Cut. And I'm not a Karen. I actually, it's funny. I currently work with a male Karen. So.
I was going to say, we have to talk about them. I mean, whether they have frosted tips or not, these male Karens exist.
It's crazy. It's really, these Karens, it's a power issue. It's the fact that they think that they can power entitled over your life. I mean, just at work, if I leave, let's say 5 minutes before, I'd have my male Karen say, oh, does the boss know? Who cares? Mind your business.
I mean, if you guys haven't check out our episode with the Mind Your Business, because
that really is Karen.
It's an epidemic. Another one. Sorry, I'm not making light of the current one.
Right. Absolutely. You know.
But the Mind Your Business, people, that's what a Karen is. A Karen is not going to mind her business. Not only is she not going to mind her business, she's going to insist on making it everyone's business, whether you like it or not. And she's not going to let you go about your business. I mean, that's essentially
They're all over. If you guys go on Twitter, YouTube, you just see Karens. There's now compilations. They're hilarious. Have fun. Enjoy it.
Yeah. So they can be, racist or not, but generally speaking, yeah. So I think it's important that when you do see a Karen, don't panic. Just away.
record.
Yeah.
I just today, actually, I went to the outlets, as you do, and I went to the outlets. I was in the Columbia outlet. Employee tells this woman, "Sorry, you need to keep social distance from me." She goes, "I am keeping social distance." And I said, "Oh," and I said in a loud voice, I said, "Oh, this is a Karen. I'm going to start recording." And the woman heard me, and the other customers, they started laughing, and she ran out. I mean, so social media is powerful. If you're going to yell at an employee who's just doing his job, yeah, I'm going to record. I'm going to humiliate you.
See, you missed your opportunity, girl.
I did miss it, but she heard me. That's why.
That's why you shouldn't have said anything.
Right.
You would have been viral. You wouldn't have to work ever again. That would be it. But, girl, we do have to talk. And I know it's come up this
About
week.
the Jimmys.
Yes, absolutely. So we talked about daytime with Ellen, but they're not the only ones free from controversy. Here comes Jimmy Kimmel.
Jimmy Kimmel. Ugh, where do we start?
Well, I will be happy to start, actually. I don't watch his show because I was alive during the men's show. So that's how I know Jimmy. And I know he's cleaned up a lot, and he's been leading the cancel culture and, righteous indignation and telling us how to live our lives. But apparently he's in hot water, not just for the blackface, but apparently he's in a few. Did you see the Oprah one?
He did Oprah. He said the N-word multiple times on Snoop Dogg's. He did a cover of Snoop Dogg's. And the problem with it's one of those racist people who say, "I'm not racist, I have black friends." It's the sneaky racist it's like sneaky anti-Semites, the ones who are like, "Oh, I don't hate you because, I
got a Jew lawyer."
Right, exactly. It's those people.
Yeah. Well, Jimmy is really he took off for the summer, right? And he made an apology because it was mostly, I think, on the Karl Malone one. And he's done it a few times.
And to be fair, Karl Malone doesn't even speak like that. So that's how you know it's really racist.
But what I love is he has that guy, Adam Carolla, come out and do a defense of Jimmy, saying, "Jimmy's the best guy I know." And I'm like, you were both pigs back then. I don't know if, okay, so just so you guys don't know, this man show was women jumping up and trampoline, but it was more than that. They would go in the streets and they would have some little kid go up to women and say really dirty and harassing things, and then the women didn't know what to say. He would embarrass women.
And I saw one.
He would weigh them, call them.
I saw one skit where he would blindfold women and they would touch where his penis is.
That's the one.
Where other people's penises are, and I was like, "What the hell?"
Well, so a popular skit of his was "Guess What's in My Pocket?" Is a banana, and he would make girls. But that's fine. These people were participating, and whatever was all supposed to be in the name of comedy. But it was the whole show. You never saw. First of all, these two guys were not attractive. Every girl had to be fake boobs. And
I want to get this straight too. I'm not against the man show. I think if it's funny, it's funny. Just like I'm not against Chappelle's show. I'm not against any type of really funny show. No, right. I'm not against even if it's a little sexist to women. If it's funny, it's funny. I'm not for that.
I understand they're comedians.
Why we're coming down on him on the man show. On his show, this is a guy who he completely sounds so virtuous whenever he's speaking about Trump. As he should. I get it. He doesn't like Trump, but he'll say Trump's a racist, Trump's this, Trump's that. Which all can be true, but I don't think you're the right person to do it.
Yeah, he's no paragon of morality, and
he's no Stephen Colbert, who's never done blackface, who's never said these things. You can't call someone racist when you yourself, I have a real problem with that, when you yourself say the N-word, have dressed in blackface multiple times.
My favorite is when they say it was a product of the times. No, it wasn't. We were around those times. And some of the best people I've met are older people who've always treated people with respect and dignity, no matter their race, sex, whatever. So there's no excuse for it. I don't want to hear it, but I don't have a problem. If that's who you are, you're a pig, that's fine. But then don't come and lecture and preach to us.
And lecture America, lecture us.
That's the problem everyone's having with, is that he went out telling everybody, I'm a big family man now and all this and all that. That's great for you. But don't tell us. I always love when someone has a great life, a rock star life, and they sleep with 1 million people, do all these drugs, and then they clean up or find God or something, and then they're telling us how to live better.
I was watching the pro-life rally, and they had a sign saying, "I regret my abortion." Okay,
but you had one.
Can you let someone else regret it then?
Yeah,
can
exactly.
you? Okay,
that's again, it goes back to minding your business. That's you.
Right.
That's your business. Okay?
I'm sorry that you regret it, but
I'm not telling you.
You had a choice. You weren't forced into it. I mean,
well, that's the problem they're having with Jimmy. So I think he thinks he can clean it up with an apology and everything, but he doesn't get that it's deep. And he goes, "Yeah, the man show was years ago." I'm like, but you showed us who you are. And as Maya Angelou says, when someone shows you who they are, believe them.
And the thing is, too, his apology was so bad because he said, I didn't even want to come out with it right away because the people on the right who hate me, they're the real racists. And, you're a talk show host. I mean, Stephen Colbert, he doesn't say bad things about people who voted for Trump. He says bad things about Trump. That's a very important distinction.
Well, with distinction or not, it's a matter of respect. Can you respect people who live on this earth? When you send out a little kid to go harass people on the streets and you say, oh, it's in the name of comedy, this guy's underage. What are these women supposed to say? They did not sign a waiver. They're not like want to be actresses.
And him with the kids book now. I get it.
He has a kid's book.
Yeah, he has a kid's book. I get it that, you've progressed, you've evolved. Fine. But then you should have owned up for your other stuff. You should say, hey guys, back when I was in my 30s, I did the Man Show, and you know what? It's shit. He never did that. So that's where it gets me.
I love comedy. I've been going to comedy shows since I was young, and I really respect their ability to say what they need to say. But then you can't use it to start preaching to us what we need to do.
You can't be a changed man all of a sudden and start preaching morals. A comedian is someone anyways who does have loose morals. That's what makes him so funny.
And he's specifically only apologizing for the blackface. He doesn't understand that it's part of a whole persona of not giving a shit about people.
Right.
That's where it looks like it comes from anyone else who's
where Jimmy Fallon, I feel like people have forgiven him. Jamie Foxx. So Jimmy Fallon did blackface of Chris Rock. He literally imitated Chris Rock. He didn't do like the big lips or anything. It was just Jimmy Fallon is in black paint. I have to say the voice that Jimmy did on Chris Rock was on point, but Jamie Foxx forgiven him. I mean, he completely owned up to it. And Jimmy Fallon doesn't preach to Americans.
I don't watch the show, like I said, because of the whole, I know what he's about, so I'm not interested. But generally speaking, it's not just that. We're going to find more things. Like, the problem is all these people who preach, if you live in glass houses, okay, right. Fine. And again, it goes back to a very simple, mind your business. I didn't ask you. We didn't elect you. Who cares? Who cares? Like, as Joy Behar says, who cares?
Who cares? Who cares?
Okay. What are we doing? Oh, girl. So all these, I expect we're going to hear from more people. Everyone's getting canceled every 10 minutes. That's why we said last episode, get our app, get that schmuck app. So you can stay on
what's
top.
Funny? You know who's not being canceled?
Who?
Still anti-Semites. We have to keep that on the radar.
Oh, there's so many people who need to really be canceled. Forget Hollywood, whether it be anti-Semites and people that are still killing trans people. You got to remember that too. They're killing all kinds of people. This has to stop. Everyone, and I love how everyone pretends, we didn't know, and now we're being educated. I'm like, when you're being an
the big
asshole.
Difference is too, a lot of people who hate Black people also hate
that
Jews.
Too.
So we have to keep in mind, and there are also Black people who might share anti-Semitic views. Recently came up with Ice Cube.
Yeah, we saw that.
We just need to keep the fire on that too.
Well, 100%. They always try to take us down, but we survived well over 5,000 years, girl. We're going to keep going. But anyway, speaking of, I know that people are starting to sort of get back, depending where you live. And we're having some unique doctor experiences. I wanted to talk about that because it's important for our listeners. No one's ever really comfortable at the gyno. Am I right?
I'm not that comfortable, no. With a woman gyno, maybe more.
Well, I'll tell you this. I remember when I was getting this new top gyno over where I was in Montreal, and I was in the waiting room feeling, of course, I groomed like a crazy person. Mm-hmm. I was there, clean as a whistle. And I'm looking around and I'm like, okay, you know what? I feel bad saying this. I'm like, there were all these senior citizens. I'm like, okay, so I'm going to be a delight for him to see. It's a man, right? So I'm like, okay, but I always think something's freaky with the men gynos, and they're always getting in trouble.
You know what I think is weird and again, I salute men gynos are the best too. Not better than, I'm not saying they're better than women, just a lot of top gynos in the world happen to be men.
They just do. And they're always straight and they really love it.
What I think is weird is that most of the time you're not seeing fresh ones like me and Chayas. You're seeing women with infections. You're seeing seniors. You're seeing vaginas.
Yeah, you got to really like the vajayge.
How do they, as straight people as well, how are they? I don't know. I think it's a weird thing to want to go into.
It always makes me think, my friend of mine dated a chef, and then he would come home when he didn't want to cook. He's like, I did it all day.
Right. If you're married to a gyno, do they not want to?
Right. They're like, I've looked at puss all day. Forget your puss. Like, it's not happening. Right. And I'm telling you that it's a unique experience with him. I remember I came in and he told me something that really surprised me. I thought the biggest issue would be the puss, even though they see all kinds of puss. But apparently it's the feet. They say the number one thing that bothers them is people's feet stink. Ever since he told me that, I bring a fresh pair of socks in my purse and right before, because you're right in their face with your
My feet probably do stink because I hate wearing socks and I'm wearing my shoes. That's right. I'm sweating in my feet.
Oh, girl, you better use that Gold Bond. You better be powdering that up. Okay. You can't be doing that. No, bring a little bit of no-show socks, the tiny socks, put them in your purse. But they had some issues. And I know in Montreal, 2 doctors were accused. They make a lot of sexual comments. And mine was top gyno. And that's what he did. Right off the bat, he's like, "You're clean as a whistle. It looks fantastic. Can I set you up with a doctor?" I was like,
is that bad?
Well, I'm sitting there with my legs spread in the skirt. I'm like, no, thank you. No. What's he going to tell? What's he going to tell the other doctors? I looked at her puss. She's childbearing.
I think with a lot of men too, it's like they love a woman's body and that's why they want to study it. So it could be that too. It's an art to them.
But like you said, they're seeing problems.
They're seeing real problems.
And when have you wanted to present your loved one with your puss if it's having a problem? You don't.
No.
You're not like, voila, I have a yeasty. Let's go, babe. So I think that it's a little unique. I know it would be nice to have a woman in that perspective, but I'll always take a good doctor. I try to block myself out. I'm like, please don't say anything sexual.
But you know what? I am sexist with dentists. I've had both men and women dentists. Women dentists are better because I feel like their hands are smaller. So even with the tools, get into the nooks and crannies.
You know what I thought about you this week? I had to go to the dentist and they had to put one of those dams on. So he warned me and I have a gag reflex. It's not good. And he's like, "Listen, I'm really sorry. I'm going to try. I have big fingers." I almost threw up.
You see?
And then the assistant, thank God she had tiny fingers. And I was like, "She's right. Pudding's right."
You see? And my dentist is a woman. And I'm telling you, it was less pain. I always went to male dentists before. But, I went to this dentist and I said, wow,
you need the tinier
difference.
fingers. Or you need to find a guy with tiny fingers. It depends. If you have a Julia Roberts mouth, what do you care?
So my non-medical advice is if you're going to a dentist, try to find a woman dentist. It'll hurt less.
Yeah, especially if it's like a back tooth or something. They're going to get in there.
Right.
Unless you've been practicing your gag reflex and, shoving a banana down there twice a day.
Women's hands just tend to be also skinnier, too. A lot of men's hands, and, don't get me wrong, my husband's hands, they're sexy, they're big hands. But would I want them in my mouth as a dentist? No.
No. And, oh, God, girl. But I thought about you. But, it was great. But we have to think when we're going to the doctor, just last tips, get a lady dentist and bring fresh socks that you change into at the waiting room at the gyno.
Yes. Well, this has been so fun. Thanks for, catching up with us, guys.
Yeah, I know it's great to be back together discussing the issues of the day.
I was camping last weekend, guys, so.
I know. I can't picture it. I don't know how you did it.
It was, you know what? I realized I can go camping, but I need to go on a campsite with a working toilet. I can't go on an outhouse.
Yeah, if some places don't even have an outhouse, you have to dig a little hole.
Maybe that I wouldn't even mind. The outhouse, the smell of it is
I think you would mind, girl. Can you hold that squat? I don't think so. Yeah.
Well, guys, we'll be back next week.
Yes, absolutely.
So thanks for listening, guys, and we'll be back next week with a new episode. If you like what you hear, don't forget to check us out weekly on iTunes or your preferred platform. Please give us a rating and subscribe to the show. Give us the stars you think we deserve.
Check out our website at allkindspodcast.com. You can also hit us up at Twitter, allkindsweekly, or on Instagram at allkindspodcast. We look forward to hearing from you, and maybe we can discuss it on our next show.
Furthermore, our personal Twitters are allkindsyahodes at Twitter and
allkindspaya.
Thanks for listening.